Reading in bed.
Right, Amanda, what are we doing today?
Reading in bed.
And what episode number is it for people who don't know?
It's 43.
And what does that mean if we don't? How long can we do this podcast for, Amanda, then? It's 43 episodes.
Over 3.5 years.
Correct, yes. I am Andy Ed, of course, and who are you?
Amanda Steele. If you don't know me by now after all this time.
A couple months' time, we're doing good in the Doctor Who, aren't you, as well?
Yeah.
And should we tell people, as our first bit of news, what the Doctor Who means?
It means I'm regenerating into Mandian.
That'll be confusing everybody today, won't it? Andian, Mandian. Yeah, why is that, Amanda, then?
Because I'm getting married to that Andian guy. You know him, don't you?
Yeah, I'm getting it. So, yeah, no, see, that's our first bit of news today, guys and girls. So, obviously, just to give you all heads up, in a couple of months' time, on Saturday, the 4th of September, Amanda Steele will cease to exist. She'll be becoming Amanda N. Very good. Oh, she might change it slightly, haven't you? So I don't know. Do you reckon? How do you reckon all our people that run podcasts will react to Andy N, Mandy N?
It get very confusing.
Yes, I think I'll be getting introduced to the stage as Mandy N. I said that will go in a mile or so. But anyway, now of course, Amanda, seriously, what is Reading in Bed? People that don't know.
It's a book review podcast.
Yeah, and what do we always do at the beginning of the book review podcast, Amanda?
Talk twaddle.
Very unladylike. Now, obviously, then we have news, and we always like to do our news. News. And what is your news, Amanda?
My news is that in a few days, you'll be able to buy the paperback version of the novella sequel to Ghost of Me, which is called Second Chances.
Ooh.
So probably by the time this is on all the networks, my book will also be available.
On all the networks.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, is there any hints you want to give about Ghost of Me 2 then, Second Chances?
Well, a friend of ours asked us if Steve was in the sequel book because she's read Ghost of Me, and I can tell you that he is. So if you've read that and you like the character Steve, and if you haven't, read it, and then read the other book, and read all the books.
Yeah. Now, people obviously would know, Amanda, obviously, you're on a 12 project and 12 months challenge at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, just to remind people, what did you bring out in June?
I can't remember what I bought out in what month. I know I bought out the Buy My Book I Need Cats, which is a poetry collection.
That was April, I believe, wasn't it? So
I also bought out a book called You Won't Believe What Happens If You Buy This Book, which is a spoof clickbait collection.
I think that was your June one, John. That was your June book, aren't you? Now, do you want to tell people as well, I don't know when this is coming out, but where you're up to with a certain audio book?
Yeah, I've finally got someone to narrate part 1 of Lost and Found, which used to be called While I Was Gone, but we'll go into the history of that.
Well, that'll be what make it into a 2-hour podcast, basically. They're dodgy publishers, but no, we'll avoid that altogether. Yeah. So, where are you up to with that then? I'm
just listening to it at the moment, just to make sure everything's okay and there's nothing that needs changing. And then I'll be able to approve that. I'm aiming to get that out in August, so that's going to count as my August project. Because even though I've not narrated it, I've still got to work with the narrator. So I class that as a project.
And you've also got something else at the end of August, haven't you? Or that, which will probably cover your September project.
Yeah, that's going to be the printed words anthology called From the Shadows, which we're both in, along with another kids. I think there's about 29 or 30 readers in total, including us.
Cool.
Or writers, should I say.
Writers.
Yeah.
So, cool to me. Now, have you got any other news?
No, I think I've covered it.
Yeah, well, I've got news, haven't I, as well? So my next approach book is about, I'm going to sort it out later on today. So I've got the cover done. I've got the blurb done, the book's done. And this is going to be called Haiku of Life. Now, what is my Haiku of Life book about, Amanda? Can you remember?
You've done a haiku for every year, which is really good because I'm impressed with how you remember being a baby and being 1 and 2.
I had to ask for help on one or two of the very early ones. That's the best way to put it to yourself. I know certainly there's no spam. It's not going to worry about it giving it away because you can find it if you look around my blogs. But the 1973 one, for example, when I was about 18 months old, my family took me to the zoo. And apparently I absolutely screamed the place down when an elephant came running towards us.
Oh dear.
So,
you don't like elephants then?
Yeah. But I said, that's that story. But some of the other ones, like I said, 1974, I know fact it was 2 or nearly 2. My sister was born, so that's just, I mean, they're obvious memories. So some of the other ones are a bit more trickier. But anyway, that more to come on that, guys. The book will be out imminently. Right, Amanda, on to reading in bed. We owe an apology, first of all, today, don't we?
I don't know, do we?
Yes. People are wondering, tuning in, thinking, they're going to do 5 books today, as usual, a joint one and 2 separate ones each. But what are we doing this month?
We've just got a joint one and a separate one each. So it's a short podcast. And I can hear people at home going, yeah.
It's just, there's been various reasons behind this month. We've just been busy, Amanda, haven't we? So I said that's why. So, but I said, we'll come on to what's happening next month at the end of the podcast. So, right. Well, first of all, then, we're on to our joint book for the month, Amanda, aren't we?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell people what the book's called and who is it by?
Okay, it's called The Jigsaw Man. It's the first book in the Inspector Angelica Henley series, and it's by Nadine Matheson.
Would you like me to do the blurb, or do you want to do it?
You can do the blurb.
Do you want to do it in my famous gravelly voice?
No, just do it in a normal voice. Try to pretend you're a normal person.
No, it's not boring now. Okay, here's the blurb, seriously, to The Jigsaw Man. A serial killer and his copycat are locked in a violent game of cat and mouse. Can D.I. Angelina Henley stop them before it gets too late? On the day she returns to active duty with the Serial Crimes Unit, Detective Inspector Angelique Henley is called to a crime scene. Dismembered body parts of 2 victims have been found by the river. The modus operandi bears a striking resemblance to Peter Olivier, the notorious jigsaw killer who has spent the last 2 years behind bars. When he learns that someone is co-opting his grisly signature, the arrangement of the victor's limbs in a puzzle piece of shapes, he decides to take matters into his own hands. As the body count rises, D.I. Angelina Henley is faced with an unspeakable new threat. Can she apprehend the copycat killer for Olivier and wait to get to him first? Or will she become the next victim? Drawing on her experience as a crime attorney, debut novelist Nadine Madison delivers a page-turning crime novel of the year. Torn, vivid, and addictively sinister, The Jigsaw Man will leave you breathless until the very last page.
Ooh.
Right, Amanda. Now, you chose this book for us this month. What made you let me rephrase that. How did you find out about this book?
I'm in a crime fiction group on Facebook, and they were raving about it in there. And I think it was only 99p, and it sounded interesting. Yeah,
it came out just doing a quick research for it, came out at the end of February, so it's a reasonably new book, this one. And apparently she is working on the second novel at the moment on this. So let me ask Amanda a question first of all before we start with the strengths on this. Do you agree, Amanda, this is not a book for the faint of heart, and certainly not a very cheerful book either?
No. I know sometimes when people haven't listened to this podcast and they hear the term reading in bed, they think, oh, is it nice stories to go to sleep to? It's like, no, this is not a story to read before you go to bed, unless you want nightmares.
This was probably the grimmest book I've reviewed in absolute ages. So I'm sure you wouldn't disagree with that, Amanda, with that, would you? So,
yeah, grim but good.
Well, we'll come on to that shortly, then, won't we? So that's why all should be revealed, as I would say with that. So, but yeah, right, Amanda. Strengths. What did you like about this book?
I thought it got off to a really good start. If it doesn't give too much away, I don't think. There's different people that focuses on the moments before they each discover separate body parts that get washed up of the same person. So you get one person discovering one part and another person discovering another part. And just the reactions, I suppose, you get from people. It's like different people react differently.
Yeah, now I'd agree with you. The book did get off to a really good start on this because I do know London better than you do, Amanda. And I read an interview with the writer about this actually, and she stated that the first part of the book, I can't remember what it was now, was either very close to where she lived or where she grew up. And the first chapter, so the first part of the book, it felt believable, didn't it? Because you felt like the writer knew the area. And what do you think to the bit about Amanda where you're always doing a book? It helps if you know the area you're writing about.
Yeah.
It really, I felt it immediately there. And I reviewed another thriller a while ago, and I've forgotten who it was by, and by an American writer trying to write London. And he didn't get to grips with it at all. It was blatantly obvious. This woman, she had the scene spot on, and you can see it a mile off with that. So, but anyway, what else did you like, Amanda?
I thought like we did a book, I can't remember if it was last month or the month before, about the movie star that was being tried for murder.
That's
And
first. That was 13, wasn't it? Yeah, I think that was last month.
yeah, and that was quite similar in a way where you can tell he's done a lot of research, and it's like it's the same in this. You could tell that she's done a lot of research to write the book. There's like certain things with the body parts and just the way things described and what happens and stuff. And that's not the type of thing you can Google without getting a knock on the door from the police.
True. Now you can also tell well we get that because her job is a defence attorney, and you can see that she must know a law in this one immediately. That stood out when you're going through the book. There was a lot of procedures that she obviously knew. She must have done a heck of a lot of research on. And also as well, the part about the prison as well. Belmarsh, I think it's a prison now. But either way, it felt like if that was a real prison, which I think it is, she'd obviously been inside that prison and obviously knew the place. Not enough to give security breaches away, but to give enough hints that she knew what she was talking about. So that part was very good.
Yeah, so were there any other parts that you liked about it then?
Yeah, I was want to talk about the characters really in this one. There's a few bits of pieces. What did you reckon to Henry, the main character? Or is this going to come in the weaknesses more for you?
In the good parts, I could say that I did like the character. The rest of the stuff I have to say can wait until the bad parts.
Yeah, I think she's a bit of a cliche in places. We'll come on to this. There is some bad parts about it. But I really liked the scenes inside Belmore between Henry and Olivia, the serial killer. Now, you could argue it was very close to Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. Have you seen the film Silence of the Lambs or read the book?
I've seen part of the film.
I saw it at the time, 1990, God. And I read the book as well. It's very, very close. It's borderline, goes beyond being a homage in places it does. But that's still my favourite scene in the book, it was. What did you reckon to that, Amanda? Do you like the bit inside the prison between the two characters?
I didn't enjoy it as much as I think you did.
Yeah, that's fair enough. The other bit of the book that stood out to me that surprised me about actually, but it give it a real modern flavour because there was subplots going around about race and marginalism in the police force, which give the book a real quite modern twist. Because you don't tend to read that sort of massive racism, do you?
No.
Marginalism in the police force, and it give quite a modern flavour to that part. So that was good as well. So, did you like the bits that when they talked about PTSD and dementia that were also cropped up in the book as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was also interesting as well. So, right, anyway, let's go into the weaknesses, Amanda, then, okay?
Yeah.
Ladies first.
Yeah, so like you were saying about the cliche thing, I've got that in my notes as well. Just that the character of Henley's thing very cliched, she's haunted by her past and she's got an unstable marriage and she's having an affair, and it just seemed a bit like that's what you expect, like all police people to be in fiction. And I don't think they're like that in real life. So.
No, I didn't buy that bit at all. I thought it was an obvious target she went for, like an obvious tick box, and it lost marks for me in that one because I thought I would liked There's bits in this book where she's doing new things, but there's there's chunks in it that aren't, just covering old ground. Because how do you feel about the husband character?
It seemed a bit weak and just, it didn't feel very fleshed out to me.
Yeah, that's a big problem they've got there. It is with that one. So big problem. And I felt straight away with it. They needed more with that character. And the relationship between her and the husband's mother and her daughter all felt woefully undercooked. It needed, hopefully, in a second book, they're going to his relationships more, because I read somewhere that someone felt this book felt more like a second book in the series rather than the first.
I think it's because it's talking about like the past, because she's had dealings with a serial killer before, but I don't think that's in a book. But I can see how it would give you the impression that you're reading a second book.
Yeah, and I'm a bit like that for that reason with that. So yeah, I agree with you on that one completely. So, and what else was saying? Anything else? Okay, we've got to ask about the gore.
Yeah, there's a lot of it.
I'm always a believer in gore, and you don't always agree with this. You're a horror writer yourself sometimes. Did you think the gore was excessive?
I don't think it was particularly excessive, but I can see it's probably not going to be for everyone.
Oh, well, I found it a bit more shamshy, but again, I'm always of the thing of the show not tell thing. And I know there was a torture scene just for the major climax. And I got to the end of that 5-6 pages thinking, why did you put that there? It felt unneeded in places. And that's the one where I'm giving us, but I can't remember the name of the character who was getting tortured. But basically, they end up seeing the chapter ends up with the serial killer pulling a saw out. And it was obvious they were going to go for part of the leg first, so they don't draw an artery, so they can live through the torture. And I thought, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, there's always need for torture. They can never have too much torture in books.
No comment. So all I'm going to say is no comment. Now, I've got actually another quick question, Amanda, as well about this. There's also, how did you feel about the length of the book? It seemed a bit long for me, to be honest with you.
I thought it was reasonable. I don't know what the page count was, but I don't remember it taking any longer than anything else to read. It
just seemed a bit drawn out to me in places, but again, that might be me sometimes. But it's sometimes a mistake like a debut author can make sometimes anyway, that if they try and pack too much into a book. So you think there's on the second and third, I'm guessing third book in this series, like it should probably get to a group, should probably be a shorter, sharper book, because I know she is writing the second one at the moment. So now, is there anything else you want to add about this book, Amanda?
Going into the weaknesses, it's just something that annoys me really, because the crime fiction group that I'm in, they can be really snobby about self-published books, and they say it's because the editing isn't that good. And this book is published by HQ, which is an imprint of I've forgotten now. I've written it down somewhere and I can't find it. But anyway, it's a reasonably sized publisher and it's got mistakes in it, but it seems that they're okay with that because it's got a publisher. It's just self-published books I don't like.
Yeah,
so that's just a pet peeve of mine, that people are a bit biased like that.
Sometimes it does go that way. So I get you completely with that, Amanda. So I think I spotted a couple of mistakes on it as well, but I'm not. That's more your area of expertise than mine, I think.
Yeah, I think I tend to be harsher on books that have got publishers if they've got mistakes in, because it just self-published writers get so much flack for it. So it's like the ones that have got publishers should get flack as well if they've got mistakes in. It's only fair.
Yeah, I agree. So agree with you completely. So right, Amanda, is there anything else we need to talk about this before we go into markings?
The only other thing is that it felt a bit unrealistic in places, but I suppose it's not true crime, no. So
yeah, and I say it's an odd area in place, that one. Yeah, that's fair enough. It's again, like I said, it's talking about the cliches again, isn't it? So I couldn't have believed the family relation dynamic she had. I found that took me out of the book, actually, truth be told you, completely, those scenes. That's why. So yeah, I know what you mean about bits that are unrealistic. So, but again, should we mark it, Amanda?
Yeah.
Okay, what mark are you giving us out of 10 then?
I've given it a 7, but only just about. So it's just about a recommendation, but it could be better.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you there, to be honest, because it was one of those ones where it's just a 7. I think I could have easily marked that to about 6.5. It was a real borderline one for me. That was so. That's why. So I could have knocked it down to 5 or 6 in places. So, but there's bits that I think that dragged it just like recommendation. Me, do you feel the same? Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, the 7 guys. It's a recommendation, but there's faults of it. That's for sure. So, by the way, okay, Amanda, that is the end of part 1, isn't it?
Yeah.
What are you doing for your only solo book this month? Any hints?
Hauntings.
Right. We'll see you in a minute then, guys, won't we? Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Reading in bed.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed, episode 43. She is at the moment, and who am I?
Andy Head.
For the moment, right?
Who are you going to be?
I'm going to become Andy Steele in September, right? And I'm sure you will either become Amanda Wren, we'll have both our families ripping their hair out then, probably, won't they? So.
Yeah, but very confusing.
Confusing already, so. But anyway, on to books. Okay, Amanda, what is your solo book for this month called?
It's called Haunted Yorkshire, and it's by Nick Tyler.
Right, Amanda. Now, people that may or may not know you, would they know, Amanda? You're originally from Yorkshire, aren't you? So,
yeah.
So, obviously, it's obvious to me what drew you to this book, but what drew you to this book then? So, people that don't know you.
I like hauntings, and I wanted to read about the different places. And hopefully, when we're allowed to go places more often, we can go and see some of these places.
So, in other words, we could end up yet with Reading in Bed, Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
So your ideas. Okay, seriously, is there a blurb for this book, Amanda?
Yeah.
What's the blurb then?
Yorkshire is steeped in history and culture, and it's little wonder that it has laid claim to some of the world's greatest ghost stories. Explore some of the strange tales of ghosts, ghouls, and demons, and recount eyewitness reports in unedited form, packed with eerie locations, folklore, and local history. Discover Yorkshire as you've never seen it before. Hear about Old Bess, who haunts the kitchens at Nostell Primary, or Are You There, Emily, the ghostly voice of a man trapped in eternity, looking for his love. Venture into Eccleshall Woods and learn about the demonic Leshy that resides there, or be spooked by the Padfoot that wanders Fall Lane in Sowerby Bridge of the dark. Does a ghost really haunt the Low Valley Arms? And does the Green Lady really wander the streets of Great Kelk?
Oh, okay then. Now, first of all then, where did you find this book?
I came across it on Amazon a while back. I can't remember how I discovered it.
I thought it was one of those books, if my memory's correct, and people can shout at me in this one, but when we live together, we forget things sometimes. Because one day goes with another, even though mother knows how much I love her. So you picked this book, you've been sitting on this book for a while, haven't you?
It was on my list, and it was a bit more than what I wanted to pay for it. And then I got a voucher at Christmas for some books. So I went through my Amazon list because they were off of the voucher itself was for foils. And I just searched on the books on the Amazon list on the foils website and picked some of them off.
Oh, yeah. No, makes sense. And so, no, fair play, Amanda, straight away with that. So I said so. Anyway, Amanda, do you want to give us then, first of all, what the strengths of this book are?
Yeah, there's a lot of stories and myths behind some of the places, and I've lived near some of these as well as a child that didn't really know about them. And then there's other places in other parts of Yorkshire that I've never been to, but now I want to go and visit them and hopefully see a ghost and scare Andy.
Drag me all around the place as normal. As we get, people can guess. I get dragged around a lot and told them to go into places whether I like it or not. Amanda, is that true?
Yeah, we're going to see a ghost tomorrow.
We're going to see a ghost tomorrow. We're going to see a ghost tomorrow. We're going to see a ghost tomorrow. Anyway, so now that's what. Seriously, now tell us. Was there any stories that stood out to you more than others in this one?
There's none particularly that stood out. I enjoyed them all. There was a good mix of different things like ghosts and demons and strange unidentified things flying through the air in a church sort of courtyard and chasing this man. And he felt like it was like the size of a man, but it was like a bird.
Is it a man?
Yeah,
is
so
it a
strange.
Man? So it's a bit like Superman, is it? Is it a man? Is it a bird?
I think it's a bit scarier than that when he's chasing you through the courtyard of a church in the
Yes,
dark.
I think it probably was been the case there. So now, obviously, then, Amanda, the question always comes to this sort of thing is on this. Was there any stories you actually knew in this? Was it?
No, but that leads me on to the bad points. I know they can't include everything in Yorkshire, but I grew up in Bradford and there was a lot of stories going about Bowling Hall Museum, which, as far as I know, is one of the oldest buildings in Bradford. And people used to say that nobody could ever spend the night there, like they'd be discovered in the morning dead. And I don't think that's quite true, but there are stories about ghosts in there, and I always wanted to spend the night there. So I was a bit disappointed that wasn't in there, so I could find out what the real story behind it was.
Yeah, of course. No, getting completely with that. So, did you feel with this? And obviously, they say this sometimes with these sort of books, and this is just not my opinion. Did you believe all the stories?
I felt like they could be real. The problem I had with it was the author would tell the stories or put the stories unedited from the people that would claim to see the ghost. And then afterwards, he'd spend a couple of paragraphs going, but this is what really could have happened. And she's fair enough to sort of have an open mind, but it seemed more skeptical than it needed to be. And sometimes it felt like the so-called plausible explanation was harder to believe than just the fact that it was a ghost.
Yeah. No, I get completely mean that. It's a real tricky one when we do these sort of ghost books. What do you tell? Are you going to be critical on it? Like, it feels like it's a critical book, really, isn't it? So it's almost like he's trying to debunk them, and I'm not sure that's always the right move. That so. Now, is there anything else about this book you need to talk about or review?
No, I think that covers everything.
Okay, then. I've got a quick question for you. I know you got it in paperback, this one, people seen the promo picture. Was it quite a long book, this one, was it?
It is about, I'm just looking at the page count now, 160 pages. So I think it's about the reasonable length for that sort of book.
Yeah. Sometimes some of these books pad it out a lot with pictures and photographs as well. So is there a lot of images in the book, basically?
Occasional photographs, but not too many. And they weren't taking up whole pages. It was more like half a page and text.
Yeah. No, because I've got a book in our study where you're sat at the moment, Amanda, about Haunted Manchester, which I have reviewed for this podcast before. And that was quite a big A4 book. It had lots of pictures in it. It was probably padded it out somewhat, but I still like it's not really. So it's quite interesting. So, okay then. Marks out of 10?
I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. I think it was well researched, but it was a bit more skeptical than I was hoping for.
I mean, you liked a bit more of a believer in it, basically.
Yeah, I just think when it starts getting to the point where the explanations for the ghost is just harder to believe than the fact that there's a ghost itself. It's just a bit much.
Yeah, no, I get completely with it. So that's fair play. Right, 7 out of 10. Another recommendation. Just. Now, the question is, Amanda, will our third book this month be a recommendation?
I don't know. I have no idea what your book is. I know you told me, but I was so interested in the book that I forgot.
Well, this one anyway. Mine's got plenty of plays in it. Well, that's my book, my clue for you, okay? Recording and plays, that's your clue. So, right. See you all in a minute. Say bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Reading and Bet.
Welcome back to Reading in Bed with me, Amanda Steele, and
Andy N.
Andy N's got a book.
Oh, what? My book or a book to review?
A book to review. Yes, he's so narcissist. It's going to review his own book.
Oh, blimey now. Right, okay, my book is by Stephen Morris. Now, Stephen Morris is the drummer for the band called New Order, and also was the drummer in Joy Division. So this book is his debut novel, actually. Record, Play, Pause. Confessions of a Post-Punk Percussionist from Joy Division to New Order, Volume 1.
Okay, so do you want to start with the blurb?
Yes, I am. I'm just going to get to it now. I was going to read it directly off the book, but I can't see it in this room and the like. So I'll have to read off the laptop. Okay. Stephen Morris has had a distinguished career spanning nearly 40 years as a pivotal member of Joy Division and New Order, with his trademark machine-like drumming. After the death of Joy Division singer Ian Curtis in 1980, Bernard Summer, Peter Hook, Morris, and Morris's wife Gillian formed New Order, one of the most critically acclaimed and influential bands of the late 20th century. New Order became the flagship band for Tony Wilson's Factory Records, and alongside him opened up the infamous Hacienda nightclub, the centre of the acid house movement. In 2015, after a 10-year hiatus, New Order released Music Complete, which charted number 2 in their first week of release, the band's highest position in 20 years. Stephen Morris's book won't be that typical music autobiography, which tends to be high in mischief and low on the music. Part memoir, part oral history, there'll be a hybrid memory in Stephen's wide and witty voice. Stephen will weave a dual narrative of growing up in the Northwest in the 1970s with how the music business actually works. He will also explore what it is to be part of a mythical band and the idea of what you do by becoming who you are.
Okay, so what were the good points to start with?
Okay, I think you know Amanda, don't you? I'm a massive Joy Division fan anyway, so.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at my bookcase, you'll see I've got 3 books up there already on Joy Division. 4, maybe 4 actually. One by Peter Hook, the bass player, one by Curtis's wife, Deborah Curtis, and there's at least a photograph book up there as well. So, and it's, tell me what you think of this myth, Amanda. There's a bit of myth about bands. They always say drummers are the least intelligent member of the band. Have you heard of that one before?
No, I've not heard that.
Yeah, well, these come, I've heard it before, they've got as thicky brickies, put it nicely. And this one, you'd think you pick the book up, you wouldn't necessarily convince it has a lot going for it, because it's been all the other members of, or survived members of Joy Division, those people who all wrote books in Joy Divisions. This one's the last one to come out, really. So you're not sure what the book's going to have going for it, really. So, but the book itself is a very, very funny book. It's lively, it's funny, and it's honest. And Morris, because he comes from where he comes from, Macclesfield, he comes from quite a poor part of Macclesfield, and you can see his down-to-earthness straight away from the beginning of the book. And when he's growing up in the 70s, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because he's one of these sort of, it's an interesting book, this, because, you know, like, we both, obviously, when we're going both in our school days, and I don't want to give too much away about your own background here, Amanda, with this, but in his case, he got expelled from school when he was 14, and he ended up going to basically a naughty boys' school in Manchester, and he stopped going to it, and his life just fell behind the cracks. And we get to that stage like that, a lot of people, they fall, don't conform to society. Their life ends up like it does a mess, basically, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So his case, he ended up joining Joy Division on it somehow. That's why, but I think driving his family crackers in the process. So, and it was a very, very funny book because he was very, very funny and quite honest in it as well. He was, so that's why. So, but it was one of those ones where it was as much about growing up in Macclesfield and growing up in a punk era in the 1970s as joining Joy Division as a band.
Okay. So is there any more good points you want to say before we move on to bad points?
Not really, Josh, because it's a good book, but I've got weaknesses. Okay.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm honest here, I'm still undecided whether we need another Joy Division related autobiography, considering there's a number of books out there, and this isn't the best one I've read. Because Peter Hook's Unknown Pleasures is my favourite and the most rock and roll of books. But it was a funny, engaging book with no airs and graces. And I read it fairly quickly, so it was a fairly lengthy book as well, actually. Yeah, it was just over 400 pages, Amanda. I've pretty well read this in about 4 or 5 days.
So you must have enjoyed it then.
I did enjoy it. I don't think it was an essential read. You know what I mean? Like it was a book I'm going to want to read again in a couple months' time. It's not.
Yeah.
But it was enjoyable. It was an easy book to read. It wasn't the best Joy Division book I've read. Well, not essential reading, but it was very, very enjoyable. Good book for what it was.
Okay. So do you want to move on to marking, or is there anything else you want to say?
No, we'll go straight to marking. What do you reckon I'm going to give this out of 10?
I reckon about a 7 or an 8.
8.5. Enjoyed
It's
it.
the highest rated book this month.
I know. It's rare that really we have basic podcasts where we only actually the 2 books before this both only got 7 out of 10, and well, my book only just got the 7, or the book we reviewed only just got 7 between the pair of us. And I don't know how close your Haunted Yorkshire book was, Amanda.
Yeah, it would have been higher if you weren't so sceptical.
Yeah, well, it's fair enough. So, but I said 8.5 for Stephen Morris's book. So, right now this is going to feel weird now, Amanda, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why is that then?
Because we've finished.
I know.
We've got no more books left to talk about.
There's not a part 4 and not a part 5. And that's just plain surreal. Now, we can reveal, Amanda, already, can't we? What books we're going to be. Well, I know several of the books I'm going to do next month. I'm just trying to get into it. So I can tell you what the book get you into it. So get into it and tell you what my books are called. But my device is just playing very funny buggers on me. Right, okay. Shall we reveal, Amanda, first of all, then what the joint book is going to be called?
Yeah, you can do that because you've got it in front of you.
Well, I'm trying to get my Kindle to work at the moment. The book's called Zombie Evolution. I do know that. And it's just gone mad on me. Oh, wonderful. And I can't even read that. I can't read the authors. 1 minute. Sorry about this. It's typical. That's right. Okay. The book is called Zombie Evolution. And it's the first book in a new series. Oh, goodness sake. You can see, but this is what we like about trying to do things live here. Sometimes things go wrong. Right, it's by Edmund, and I can't even read what his name is. And Edmund, oh my God, Geeta, is it? So anyway, so Zombie Evolution is the book 1 of a new series. So I've read 15% of that. Now, you've only got what one of your other books are going to be, Amanda, don't you?
I know what 2 of my other 2 books are going to be.
Oh.
In a previous episode, I reviewed a book called, I think it was called The Resident. It was by David Jackson anyway. And it was about a man who was a serial killer hiding up in the attic and spying on all the neighbours because the attics joined onto each other. And he's got a new book out now called The Room. So I'm going to be reviewing that next month.
Well, that'd be a nice, cheerful book, no doubt, knowing him, because I do remember that David Jackson book.
Yeah.
To get you said it was disturbing, that goes so far away, doesn't it?
Yeah, from what I've read so far, and I remember I felt this way with the first book, I was reading bits of it and I was thinking, I wish I'd written this. And that doesn't happen often.
Oh dear. Be scared, everyone. I will be when she goes on next month. Now, I can reveal what my 2 solo books are. Do you want me to tell them what they both are? Then we'll go on to what your other books will be. Other book will be on top of it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to do the book by M.R. Carey, who people may remember. He had quite a successful film a couple of years ago called The Girl with the Gifts.
Yeah.
And he's got a new book out called The Book of Coley. Now, that's set in some post-apocalyptic worlds. I've not touched it properly, so. And if I get time, I also do have a book by Michael Morpurgo. I'll get it right now. Morpurgo. who's most famous for being for what book's he quite famous for doing, Amanda?
I don't know.
I have reviewed him already. I have reviewed Why the Whales Came here on this podcast, but he's very famous for doing, apart from also, I reviewed Escape Shangri-La as well. He's also famous for doing a book called War Horse.
Oh, right, yeah.
That's one of his books as well. And so I've got that. So what's your third book going to be, Amanda, then?
My third book is a non-fiction book about copywriting, which if anybody knows me, know that I do copywriting. And I thought it would be interesting to review that, and hopefully people can learn something, and if they're interested in getting into it, it might be to help them. So we'll see how the book goes when I read it, and I'll review it next month.
As I say, everybody, Amanda's going to write books to terrify people, we'll review and also educate people next month, aren't you, as well?
Yeah.
So, yeah, should be looking forward to it. Like I said, guys, we should be back at the beginning of August, as always. And we'll see how we go for September at the moment, and we're not sure at the moment. We know obviously when we're getting married and stuff, we'll have to try and sneak in the podcast probably a little bit earlier than for September, then probably, won't we?
Yeah, we could always do it near the end of August and just pre-schedule it, can't we?
Yeah.
So that it comes out when we're getting married.
So
two places at once.
True. Now, this is what that podcast people may be wondering. That September one, again, maybe 4 books, because if I've got to try and read 6 books in 2 months, or not even that, is it? So that's going to be entertaining.
No.
So wait and see. Right, guys and girls. Andy and Amanda Steele?
Yeah, for now.
For now. In September, maybe Andy Steele, Amanda N. Or Mandy N even. Who knows? But Amanda, do you want to say bye?
Bye.
See you next time, guys. Stay safe, stay over.
Reading in bed. Reading in bed. Reading in bed. Reading in bed.